Welcome everyone to our webinar today. My name is Angela Haymauer-Kaiser and I work with ProFarm Group. I'm pleased to present to you our webinar on preventing disease and increasing early season spray efficacy in tree nuts and stone fruit. ProFarm Group is a publicly traded company. The information in this webinar is strictly for educational purposes. Should you be interested in investing in our company, we encourage you to do your own due diligence and make decisions based off of your own research, not the information in this presentation. My first colleague is Doug McDowell, and he is the territory sales manager for the San Joaquin Valley. So he's in the heart of almond and tree nut country. He has 25 years of experience managing sales and technical services in fresh fruit and vegetable preservation, with a focus on chemical and biological solutions. His areas of expertise are in citrus, stone fruit, and pomegranates, and he has been gaining a tremendous amount of expertise in almonds and tree nuts since he joined ProFarm a few years ago. For the past several years, Doug has advised growers and agriculture distributors on the use of Jet Ag and Jet Oxide to manage disease, pest, and food safety concerns. So Doug is one of our Jet Ag experts, or our PAA experts here. And he is a licensed PCA and has a master's degree in biology from California State University, Fresno. So go Bulldogs, right? I'd love to hear how many Bulldogs we have on the line today. All right, so that's Doug. Doug, thank you so much for being on and sharing your insight and expertise as you talk about the various tools that are available to growers today. Our second speaker is Dr. Melissa O'Neill. She is the Senior Field Development Manager for the Western region for ProFarm Group. She has served in her current role since 2014. Prior to that time, she worked as a PCA and CCA with Booth Ranches and was formerly an employee of Dr. Beth Grafton Cardwell's Citrus Entomology Laboratory that's jointly stationed at the Lynn Cove Kearney Agriculture Research and Extension Centers. Melissa holds an AA and AS degrees from the College of the Sequoias. She has a BS in biology from Fresno State and an MS in agriculture from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Her doctorate is in education, and she received it from California State University, Fresno. Melissa's current research interests include entomology, plant pathology, plant health, and weed science. She is also involved with investigations centered on issues affecting women in science, technology, mathematics, and engineering, or as we often call it, STEM disciplines, and the importance of STEM education to overall students. Melissa, thank you for being on the webinar today, and she will be covering some of the field data on the various tools that Doug will be talking about. And lastly, we have our guest speaker, Mike Bryant, who is a PCA and agronomist with Buttonwillow Warehouse Company. Mike is also a proud Fresno State Bulldog and was actually born and raised in the agriculture epicenter of the Central Valley near the Los Baños area. And he was actually introduced to agriculture through good friends. He began his career in agriculture working with two very well-known and large farming operations in the Watsonville area. And then he moved into ag retail in 2005 with UAP, or United Agri Products, which later became CPS, or Crop Protection Services, and has now evolved to what Nutrien is today. Mike was hired by Buttonwillow Warehouse Company in 2017 and has been part of this exceptional growing family-owned ag retailer. He supports grower efforts, is a very experienced PCA and agronomist, and helps keep growers abreast to the latest crop protection and nutritional materials that are available to them across a wide variety of crops. So Mike, thank you so much for being on. I know it is a very busy time of year, and we appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day to share your insight and expertise with our attendees on the webinar.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
All right. I'm going to go over the agenda quickly. Today, we're going to go over the company and who ProFarm is, in case you're not familiar. Then we're going to review the tools. Excuse me, we've switched it. Mike has an important grower meeting he has to get off to. As we all know, a lot of times schedules are dictated around the weather, and we do have some big weather events going on. So we're going to, after the company overview, I'm going to hand it over to Mike, and he's going to talk a little bit about his tips for managing early season diseases, given the current economic conditions. Then we'll jump back to the overview of tools and field data that support a BioUnite strategy or sprays for increased efficacy. And then we'll finish with reviewing the information we discussed and some suggested IPM programs. Of course, there's going to be plenty of time for question and answer. We'll have it at the end. But of course, if you have questions throughout the webinar, please place them in the chat or the Q&A section. We have several people monitoring those areas, and we'd love to answer those questions and have the dialogue as the webinar goes about. Again, we'd like to make these as interactive as possible. We generate a little over 350 million in revenue and are growing at about 20% over the past 4 years. You can see on the left chart that our portfolio as a combined company now covers pretty much every specification in the crop protection industry, from insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, to inoculants and seed traits. And we also are present in both row and cash crops. In North America, we have a growing portfolio, again, focused in 3 core areas: crop protection, crop health, and crop nutrition. And today we're going to focus really on 3 specific tools: Jet Ag, Regalia, and Stargis, to help you get ahead of any disease problems that might be starting to evolve or make their presence known, as we're dealing with a lot of wet conditions throughout at least the western part of the United States. Before we jump into a little bit of overview of these products and how they can help you, I'm going to hand it over to Mike. And pardon me while I jump through slides, but I want to jump to Mike's slide. But Mike, I'd love for you to just chime in and talk a little bit more about your experience and how you're helping growers stay ahead of the problems that early season diseases can create.
Well, as we've all seen with the weather that we've been having, it's been warm, it's been wet, very conducive to disease. Trees are starting to push a little earlier than we would like to see in our area. So we are preparing the best we can based on economics of the price in almonds to get ahead of what's coming at bloom. We're preparing for, fungicide sprays at pink bud, and then going on into full bloom.
So Mike, how do you work with a grower to help them strategize in the most effective way for IPM sprays?
A lot of monitoring, a lot of history, a lot of paying attention to the varieties, knowing your area, your soils, your timing of when the trees normally push compared to what they're doing in the current year, to make decisions for treatment the most effective for the conditions that we're dealing with.
And how do you incorporate biologicals into that IPM strategy?
Biologicals are a big part. They can give you an added advantage for different situations, different modes of action, boosting efficacy, helping out with rotation, a lot of different situations.
Do you find growers are receptive to trying incorporating biologicals into a conventional tank mix or conventional rotation, or how do you help them see the value in that?
Some are, and some aren't. We try to keep it on a case by case, field by field, year by year decision. But overall, I see a big difference where we do incorporate that as part of the program with plant health benefits and sometimes yield increase.
Do the plant health benefits help with disease prevention, or what have you specifically seen when you incorporate the biologicals into a tank mix or a conventional rotation?
Disease prevention, yes. Overall plant health, the healthier the tree is, the stronger it's going to be to fight off and combat different diseases that might affect it. Getting it over that or past that, and not going through a stress period where you could cause a drop of fruit. Basically trying to hold whatever you can that's set, keeping the tree as healthy and happy as.
What, given the wet conditions, we had pretty wet conditions last year, and it looks like, we're off to a pretty tough start this year. What are some of the things you're seeing that are outliers or, that are throwing maybe you or growers for a curveball, and how are you dealing with that?
Well, it's blooms coming earlier in the almonds that we would like to see.
Okay.
A lot of that, I think, has to do with the chill hours. We didn't get a lot of chill hours this winter, so the trees are waking up a little bit early. I think they'll be in better shape this year than last year, even with the low chill hours, just because the yields overall were off and the trees didn't have as big of a crop on them. They're gonna have a little bit more energy this year. So we're hoping for higher yields and better fruit set. But that's yet, it's still early. We'll see what Mother Nature throws at us in the next month or so.
Mm-hmm. And given, I mean, the almond industry has been dealing with challenging prices, right? And input prices, that, the growers are kind of getting squeezed on both ends, so to speak. So how do you help growers stretch their dollar further, especially in high disease pressure years?
We try to treat based on instead of just blanket spraying, it's this time, do this. We try to limit what we can and spray different varieties at different times, based on the weather, based on the forecasts, just to try to save where we can, not treat if we can get away with it, based on the weather conditions and that field history. But at the same time, we don't want to sacrifice production or plant health if the market did turn, prices go up, so we keep that in mind too. We're still doing the best we can with the budgets we're giving, but we do try to cut a little bit here and there where we can, not spray a field if we think it's going to be okay, in situations.
Okay. What tips would you give a grower for trying to prevent or get ahead of disease management, given both the environmental and economic conditions that we're dealing with right now?
Well, that you answered the question there. The key thing is get ahead of it.
Yeah.
Don't let things start to build up and become an issue, because then you're on your heels the whole season. Staying ahead of it is key. Watching the weather, watching the conditions, and just basically being on top of things, being in the field, watching the crop, watching how it progresses. This year we did miss a lot of dormant sprays, so either by weather or budget. So we're gonna be fighting fighting that. I have a funny feeling coming up in the next couple weeks.
Okay. I'm curious to know, there's a lot of neglected or abandoned orchards out there right now just because of the market conditions. And then, of course, there was huge navel orangeworm pressure last year in California. Are any of those aspects going to, or are you seeing them already impacting disease incidence or presence in orchards today?
Not currently, but it will affect later down the road. A lot of inoculum built up. A lot of those trees didn't get obviously harvested, still have nuts on the trees. So there's a heavy navel orangeworm population in the mummies. So it's kind of the calm before the storm, I think, but that is gonna be an issue this year. I don't think right out of the get-go, but it will at some point throughout the season become a factor. What we're dealing with now basically is watching the forecast, paying attention to the weather, and I'm talking to my growers right now about the possibility of having some bacterial blast pop up. Forecast shows about the 15th to the 17th, the weather turning cold and still raining. So that's when your bacterial blast is going to show up. That's when you really need to be ready and get ahead of it, especially in areas where you've had it in the past or it's known to occur.
Okay. So I know you have to run to a grower meeting. So I guess I would just love for you to chime in on, what has been your experience using biologicals, and any tips or insight to those that are on live today as far as great ways to incorporate biologicals or things to expect when they use them.
I would look at Jet Ag. That's a good product to use in situations where you have heavy disease pressure, heavy inoculum. Regalia is a good one for added plant health benefits.
Excellent. So you've worked with both Jet Ag and Regalia?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Any final questions for Mike? Or Mike, any final comments or closing, tips for the people that are on live today?
No, good luck to everybody, and let's keep it going.
All right. All right. Mike, thanks so much for being on and sharing your insight. I appreciate it. I know you're super busy, and good luck with that grower meeting.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. Take care, Mike.
Thanks.
I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Doug, who is going to talk about the tools in greater detail that Mike just mentioned for helping to manage disease. Doug, are you able to control the slides?
Let me check. Doesn't look like on my end.
Okay, just give it a second. Go ahead and try one more time.
Nope.
Okay, I'll advance you.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you again, Mike, for your insight. What I'd like to present today, this portion of the webinar, is talk about our 3 fungicides and how they're used as far as a BioUnite fashion in a total IPM program. But before I do that, I just want to go over what we refer to as BioUnite is. So BioUnite is something that we've been promoting certainly for the last 3-4 years. It's a growing trend among growers and PCAs to bring together the novel, unique modes of action of biologically derived products into a conventional spray program for various reasons. To combat pesticide resistance, to bring in greater efficacy in your efforts to control diseases. It could take on the form of a tape mix with other chemistry or in rotational programs. And the industry of today really supports this strategy because for several reasons. One, if you do any public polling, consumer preference dictates that they always say they want less chemistry on their food. Okay. Likewise, here in California, our regulatory agencies, starting this year, due to new bee regulations, we're being told that we should expect estimated up to 50% less neonicotinoid use. Also, distant markets where we ship our produce, like the EU, are constantly reducing or eliminating critical key chemistries that we use to provide quality products to them. They're telling us they don't want those chemistries on the products that we ship to them. Also, we have documented resistance to various pesticides. And finally, these biologically derived or bio-based pesticides will actually fill the gap supporting chemistry, oftentimes because we are MRL exempt, or we leave no physical residues on the food, and generally we don't generate resistance. So with that, the first fungicide that I like to go over in our portfolio is JetAg 5%. So JetAg 5% is a parasitic acid product. It yields curative fungicidal and bactericide and algicide capability. Is one label with many use rates or uses on the label. It is a contact killer, so it has to come in contact in order for it to work on the pathogens. And there's a list here of related to tree nuts specifically on various diseases that JetAg is active against. Like all of our products, JetAg comes with a 4-hour reentry interval. 0-day PHI is also MRL exempt and does carry an OMRI listing for organic use. Other benefits of JetAg. So just a little bit of basic chemistry here. To produce parasitic acid, you have to combine acetic acid and hydrogen peroxide, and then you have a parasitic acid product produced. Hydrogen peroxide and acetic acid does make it into the final formulation, but the PAA does all the heavy lifting. That's where you get the majority of your efficacy against the microorganisms. It's also 100 times more stable than standard grade hydrogen peroxide. However, once the material dries on a surface, it could be a plant surface or it could be a food grade contact surface if you're using it for that purpose. Once it dries, it breaks down into carbon dioxide and oxygen. I mentioned before one label. So this is unique to JetAg. There are many other parasitic acid products out in the industry. The issue with most of them is they're very restrictive on how you can use them. And so with JetAg, we have soil treatments, in-house, outdoors, water sanitation. We even have spotted wing Drosophila on the label. And we're compatible with most crop protection products. However, we recommend to not direct mix with products that contain heavy metals such as copper, sulfur, magnesium, and zinc. Or the use of JetAg, how do you use it? So actually, I mentioned that full label of many uses. I'm just going to touch upon 2 uses. One is the foliar application, and the other one is irrigation water treatment. We have within foliar, we have 2 rates. Curative, so if you get surprised and you have some already established disease, you can use JetAg to clean it up. That's at that 1% volume per volume. If you're using JetAg in a preventative mode before you have disease symptoms, you can certainly go to a 2 quart per 100 gallon mix. However, the key to using it preventatively is you have to treat often. So, 1 to 2 week intervals is a must if you're going to use it at that 0.5%. It's no problem for the berry guys on the coast because they spray weekly pretty much. But if you're any other crop group system and you're not spraying that frequently, then just use the full 1% volume per volume. For irrigation water treatment, so if it's been a while and maybe your micro sprinklers or your drip emitters are getting plugged, you go with 25-ounce rate per 1,000 gallons. You leave it overnight, let it set, and then the next morning blow it out, and your lines will be nice and clean. And then at that point, what we call a maintenance rate, you can drop that back down to 5 to 10 ounces per 1,000 gallons, just to continuously keep that water sanitized. And with the foliar application, because JetAg is a contact killer, you can enhance or increase your chances of getting the most kill by mixing it with a sticker spreader. Having good volume and a good sticker spreader will ensure that you get the most out of this product. Moving on to Stargus. Stargus is our newest fungicide on our portfolio. It's actually a Bacillus amyloliquefaciens product. Some of the benefits is that it does impart broad spectrum control of many fungal diseases. It not only prevents disease, but you actually get a little bit of plant boosting plant defenses. It's very tank mix compatible. It also carries 4-hour reentry, 0-day PHI, and OMRI listed. How does Stargus work? Stargus actually has 3 unique modes of action. So first and foremost, when we produce Stargus in Michigan, we undergo a fermentation process. And Stargus, living bacteria, just like you and I, we require food. And so when we feed it, it metabolizes these products and it releases metabolites into the media that are antifungal in nature. So I want to direct your eyes to this Petri plate to the left. At 12 o'clock, we have Stargus, and at 6 o'clock, we have Botrytis. And we allow the two to grow towards each other. And that clear zone of inhibition you see there surrounding the Stargus, that's where the metabolites are being released, and it stops the fungus in its tracks. The second mode of action is when you apply Stargus to your plant material, whether that be a root application or foliar, the presence of Stargus triggers the plant to undergo what we call either induced systemic resistance or systemic acquired resistance. These are pathways that are in the genetics of the plant that we turn on, and the plant starts producing antifungal compounds itself. And then finally, the formulation of Stargus contains live spores. So when you apply Stargus to your plant tissue, upon application, the spores will germinate, they will develop, they will colonize those plant parts, and they exclude the pathogens for nutrients and space. So art of use for how to use Stargus, it's labeled for 1 to 4 quarts per acre for the foliar, applied at every 7 to 10 days for best results. And we do recommend a non-ionic surfactant. And then finally, Regalia. Regalia is our oldest fungicide in our portfolio. It's actually, you can use it to not just control fungal diseases, but it's very good on bacterial diseases. One disease of note for tree nuts kind of bit us last year was bacterial blast or bacterial spot. Regalia is a great product to use for that, as well as JetAg. But Regalia also promotes plant immunity in its unique mode of action. And there's a list there of common diseases for tree nuts. And again, 4-hour reentry, 0-day PHI, also OMRI listed. And Regalia is a plant extract of giant knotweed with a frat code P5. The mode of action. So I want to direct your eyes to this little cartoon we have. Imagine that being a plant cell, and the purple dots are the Regalia that you just sprayed on your plant. So the presence of Regalia stimulates that ISR pathway, producing these antimicrobials that are being cranked out by the plant. But in addition to that, lignin formation is also turned on. And if you remember, lignin is an important component of the cell wall and actually can be a physical barrier to fungal pathogen infection. And then finally, we do also see an increase in chlorophyll production. So you actually, that's like what Mike was saying with Regalia, with the plant health benefits, that we actually see enhanced photosynthetic activity. So when the plant can have greater photosynthetic activity, it produces more sugars, it has more energy, to grow, but not only that, it has more energy to fight off disease. And order of use. So within the foliar application, we have basically two recommendations here. So if you're combining Regalia with a conventional fungicide, like within BioUnite strategy, then all you need is a quart per acre at that 10 to 14 day interval. If you're using Regalia in a rotation or even in an organic setting, the recommendation is not less than 2 quarts per acre on a 7 to 10 day interval. And if you're using Regalia as an aerial, we have it's basically 1 to 2 pints per acre. And with Regalia, it is very thick and it settles. So I want to really stress shaking it vigorously before mixing. Otherwise, all the good active ingredients make it into the triple rinse, and you're not going to get your desired effect that you're looking for. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. O'Neill.
Doug, thank you so much for that wonderful primer on our products, and I appreciate all of our attendees today. I'd like to get started on presenting some data here. I'll be sharing with you data from across several years, and I'll be asking my colleague Angela to go ahead. Well, let me see, Angela. I might be able to do it. Yep, I got it. So I'll go ahead and switch my slides, and we are on our first slide with brown rot blossom blight. I'd like to do a little bit of housekeeping as we start our data review to orient ourselves to how the data are organized. First thing I'd like to point out is the treatment timing table. You'll see that in the upper right-hand side of the screen. Notice that there's a row of letters A, B, and C, a row of dates below, and some phenological timings such as pink bud, full bloom, and early PF, which is petal fall. I'd like to show you how those letters A, B, and C correspond down to the x-axis for your reference. Let's take, for example, Regalia 1 quart per acre, followed by Maravon. That's the blue bar all the way over to the right. You'll notice that Regalia 1 quart per acre is followed by the letter A. That means that that is application timing A, the pink bud at 2/17/21. The vertical slash means that followed by, so it's a rotational program. Maravon at 6.5 fluid ounces per acre was applied then at the B and C timings, or the full bloom and early petal fall timings. All of the slides you'll see today follow this convention. Next, we'll consider where this trial was performed. It was in Sanger, California with Eurofins, and we looked at the number of diseased flowers per 1 minute timed search on the y-axis. Untreated control in the brown bar was about 175 diseased flowers observed per minute. In the middle, you see the standard product Maravon. It was applied at 6.5 fluid ounces per acre at the B and C timings. The numbers of diseased flowers per time search was around 160. Next, we'll consider that BioUnite program or rotation that we already looked at. So Regalia 1 quart per acre at the first timing, followed by Maravon at the second and third timings. And we saw a reduction of the diseased flowers per 1 minute time search down to 140, comparing that to Maravon applied alone or the untreated control. That was a much lower number of diseased flowers, leading to more fruit set and better yield at the end of the season. We'll move to our next slide now, where we will consider an outcome that results from controlling brown rot blossom blight on your flowers to begin with, which is the marketable weight. So if those flowers survive, they turn into fruits and nuts, as we know. And so in the same study, as you'll notice, the treatment timings are the same. We also looked at the marketable weight on the y-axis here. It's in grams per plot. What we'll take a look at here is the fact that we like to see a larger marketable weight going up on the y-axis. That means we have more marketable yield at the end of the season. Untreated control in the brown bar, around 116 grams per plot. That Maravon applied at the second and third or B and C timings was around 115. But that Regalia Maravon BioUnite program that we discussed a few moments ago was around 121 grams per plot. So in controlling the pathogenicity on those blooms at the beginning of the season, we saw a favorable outcome in terms of the marketable weight at the end of the season. Let's talk about some more brown rot blossom blight, because with all of this rain we're getting in California, there is certainly high potential for it. I can just hear those spray rigs going now. Eurofins, Sanger, California. You see a treatment timing tables over here. The diseased flowers per 1 minute time search on the y-axis, untreated control around 175. We had that Maravone program at the BNC timing, here around 160 diseased flowers per plot. And now we have two different BioUnite programs we're looking at. These include the Regalia 1 quart per acre at the A timing, followed by the Maravone 6.5 fluid ounces per acre at the BC timings. That's the blue bar that's more towards the center right-hand side of the slide. Diseased flowers around 140 in that treatment. And then there was another BioUnite program that we examined during the course of this trial. This other BioUnite program is shown in the blue bar at the far right, Stargus 1 quart per acre, that was added to JetAg at a 1% volume to volume per acre rate at the A timing, followed by the Maravone at the B and C timings. And we also saw a good level of reduction with that program with diseased flowers per minute around 145. So you have both Regalia and Stargus plus JetAg for some options in your toolkit in managing brown rot blossom blight. Talking about marketable weight, as I've mentioned in the past, marketable weight is an important metric because it helps you to follow through from when you're treating for blossom blight at the beginning of the season all the way till the end to see what happens in terms of yield. Marketable weight in grams per plot on the y-axis accordingly. Untreated control around 116 grams per plot in the brown bar on the left. Working our way right, we'll look at Maravone, 6.5 fluid ounces per acre at the second and third timings, around 115 grams per plot. The Regalia Maravone BioUnite program that we went over in detail a moment ago when considering the floral aspects of the data came in at about 121 grams marketable per plot, followed by Stargus added to JetAg at the A timing, rotated with Maravone at the second and third or B and C timings, up around 126 grams per plot. So both of these BioUnite programs added value by increasing the marketable weight at the end of the season. Rot, a different pathogen. Let's consider that for a moment. Looking at an orchard in Kerman, California with this study, there were 4 different treatment timings in March, April, June, and July, corresponding to A, B, C, and D, and that treatment timing table that's at the upper right-hand side of your screen, and you can see the corresponding phenological stages listed there as well. Checking out the percentage of whole rot per 200 nuts on the y-axis. The standard material here was Inspire at the A and C or first and third timing, rotated with PhD at the B and D or second and fourth timings. The percentage of whole rot per 200 nuts was around 27 for that standard treatment rotational program. Now we'll take a look at the blue bar and we'll go over the details of that here. Looking down at our x-axis, we can see that the blue bar corresponds to 1 quart per acre of Stargus added to Inspire at the A timing, 1 quart of Regalia with 1% JetAg plus Inspire at the C timings. And for the B and D timings, it was 1 quart per acre Regalia plus 1% JetAg added to PhD. So we're doing a combinational program there. And we saw 10% whole rot per 200 nuts. So by adding the Stargus and the Regalia into the standard program, we saw quite a bit of decrease in whole rot overall compared to the standard program applied alone. Talking a bit more about whole diseases from whole rot, from Rhizopus or Monolinia species pathogens. Here we'll look at a study from Eurofins this very past season up in Sanger, California. The treatment timing table upper right, you can see that there were 4 treatment timings for this particular study. The average whole disease per tree on the y-axis with untreated check on your right-hand side of, on the left-hand side of the screen in the brown bar at 0.8 average per tree. The standard program, Inspire 7 fluid ounces per acre at the first and third timings, rotated with Quadris top at 14 ounces per acre at the B and D or second, fourth timings, was about 1.1 in terms of average whole disease per tree. Taking a look at the blue bar towards the center right-hand side of your screen. That consisted of a treatment program with Regalia 2 quarts per acre added to JetAg 1% volume to volume at the first timing, added to 7 fluid ounces Inspire at that same timing, and then rotated with Quadris top 14 fluid ounces per acre plus JetAg at the B and D timings. Note that there was no C application in this particular program. Now we have that coming in about a little below 0.4 and sharing statistical significance with both the untreated and the standard program, as well as with this regalia rotation to the far right, which we'll consider next. This regalia rotation to the far right, it looks like it doesn't have a bar. Well, there were still data collected and the data said 0 average whole rot disease per tree. That's why you don't see any bar, but you see a floating letter. That B there means that we were statistically lower on the average whole disease per tree with this rotational program compared to all of the other treatments except for this regalia program in the blue. And this statistically lower program consisted of regalia 1 quart with JetAg 1% volume to volume and 7 fluid ounces of Inspire at the A and C timings. And that was rotated with regalia 1 quart with the 1% JetAg and Quadris top at 14 fluid ounces per acre at the B and D timings. So there you have it. We had a good level of control with that 4 treatment program in BioUnite. We'll talk about diseased flowers with the BioUnite spray versus an alternative. This is getting back to brown rot blossom blight, but data fresh, hot off the presses from the 2023 season, and it had 2 treatment timings, as you can see up here in the right-hand corner, 50% bloom and full bloom corresponding dates on the bottom row of that table. Diseased flowers per 3-minute time search on your y-axis. Looking at the untreated control, brown bar all the way to your left. That one had about 17 diseased flowers per 3-minute time search. Maravon, the standard, 6.5 fluid ounces per acre, both treatment timings, a little above 18 diseased flowers per time search. Looking at the first blue bar to center right-hand side of the screen, that one corresponds to regalia with 1 quart per acre rate added to JetAg 1% volume to volume at the A timing, followed by Maravon 6.5 fluid ounces at the B timing, reducing that pressure from brown rot down to around 14 diseased flowers, per 3-minute time search. And next, all the way on the right, we have Stargus 1 quart per acre with a JetAg 1% volume to volume at the A timing, rotated with that same rate of Maravon at the B timings, coming out with the lower percentage of diseased flowers overall, around 10 flowers per 3-minute time search, not percentage, but count. And looking at our statistical significance across the board here, we can see that the regalia 1 quart, kind of the middle blue bar, shared significance with the untreated as well as with the Stargus, but the Stargus JetAg rotation with Maravon had an overall lower disease pressure compared to these other trial treatments. So those are some good BioUnite programs from this past season that can help you manage brown rot blossom blight in rotations. And we already had heard from Mike Bryant, so I'd like to turn it back over to Angela. I will check out the webinar chat as well as the Q&A, and I thank you very much for your time. And Doug, would you like to take it away?
Sure. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to wrap it up with a review of the products we went over, and then briefly just go over our seasonal program that we recommend for tree nuts, and certainly can qualify for stone fruits as well. So with JetAg, remember that's our 5% parasitic acid. It's recommended 1% for curative treatment unless you're doing frequent applications. You can use the lower rate. We do recommend the sticker spreader. And actually, we have great results when you mix it with either regalia or Stargus. And you might say, wait a minute, Stargus is a live bacterial cell, but bacillus are hardy. It's hard to kill them. If you mix JetAg with Stargus in the spray tank, same spray tank, within a few hours of application, you're fine. Just don't let that tank sit overnight, because then the Stargus will be dead. And again, just don't forget not to direct mix with the heavy metals. Stargus, very good broad spectrum control. Again, you can get disease prevention as well as boosting plant defenses. You can actually use Stargus all season long. And it's something I didn't mention before with all of our products. We have no minimum or maximum seasonal applications. So you can, unlike some conventional chemistry where you're tapped out after a couple of applications per acre, all of our products, you can use them as many times as necessary. And again, Stargus, 1 to 2 quarts per acre, dependent upon if you're in a BioUnite situation or maybe organic or rotational. Regalia, we can also manage fungal and bacterial diseases. And we do promote plant health with the other qualities of Regalia. Again, it's best used pre-bloom or post-petal fall, and 1 to 2 quarts per acre rate. And I didn't go over this, but we have extensive data. If you're still using copper as a means to control various diseases, but either copper's not working like it used to, or you're being asked to reduce your copper inputs, Regalia is a great tank mix partner with copper. And then finally, just to round it up with BioUnite, just a reminder that, chemistry works until it doesn't. And biology brings in this novel modes of action, high efficacy, targeted, so you can actually improve your conventional program, either rotationally or in a tank mix, and for fighting off or mitigating resistance. So as far as a recommended seasonal spray program for tree nuts specifically, but you can also extend this to stone fruit as well. If you're targeting brown rot blossom blight or whole rot, but it could be shot hole. You could be targeting alternary or Botrysphaeria blight in pistachios. We recommend Regalia and Jet Ag pre-flower. So pink bud or bud swell, like right now, if the rain stops enough to where you can get in, right now would have been a perfect time to apply Regalia and Jet Ag. Then moving to full bloom, we recommend the Stargus at that 1 to 2 quart per acre rate. And then petal fall to hull split or harvest, depending on what crop we're talking about, it's a rotation of Regalia Jet Ag or Stargus Jet Ag. And just a reminder, if you're using Jet Ag specifically, if you decide to use it while bloom is present, just be careful. We do not recommend applying while bees are active. So early morning, late night applications, you should be all right. Because remember, once Jet Ag does its job and it dries, it's gone. So it won't have any effect on the bees. And with that, I think I will hand it back off to Angela, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. Just a reminder that we have a national team of crop consultants and PCAs that are available to help you. So based on your location, we recommend contacting the crop expert in your local area. Feel free to take a screenshot or a photo of this slide, but we also have all the contact information of our crop consultants on our website, which is www.profarmgroup.com. We also have a team of technical experts. Let's see if it'll advance. That specialize in specific product lines. So we have JR, who's our biocontrol product manager and has expertise in all of our biocontrol products. So many of the products that we mentioned today. Of course, you heard from Melissa, Dr. Melissa O'Neill, who has the expertise in how these products are working in the field and the data. We have Brian Miller in the Midwest, who has expertise in berries, palm fruit, and row crops. And then we have Seth Little, who's also a farmer, expertise in our adjuvants, our new adjuvant line, as well as our fertilizers. And lastly, we have Steve Bokash over there in the Northeast, who is a colleague of Melissa's in regards to, the field development and the field data expertise. He also has a lot of expertise in indoor growing and the smaller crops like, I want to say like small berries, things like that, tomatoes and peppers. So I'd like to finish up, and I need to check the chat. I'm sure Melissa has been answering a lot of questions. Go ahead, Dan.
One was from one of our attendees. They had asked if you might be able to show the CCA QR code again here at the end of the presentation. So is there a chance you could go back to that slide that shows that CCA QR code so that everyone could have an opportunity to capture it?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So,
and that's the only one, the only question I'm seeing still active in the webinar or the Q&A. So please forgive us if your question was inadvertently missed in the scrolling of the chat. And please speak up if you do have a question that's still burning or was unaddressed. As of right now, I don't see any additional ones though, Angela.
thank you for attending our webinar today. We hope that this is just the start of an ongoing interaction and dialogue with you. Don't hesitate to reach out to our speakers today. We aim to be a resource for you, an educational resource. So thanks again for attending our webinar, and everybody stay safe out there. And hopefully we'll see you on a future webinar. Bye-bye, everyone.